Don't like standing in line or mailing in your ballot to vote? Well, now there's a push to allow voting via mobile technology like smartphones. Backers of mobile voting say it would improve turnout, but security experts are sounding alarm bells. LA Times reporter Evan Halper from the Times Washington, D.C. bureau has more on the story. Hey, Evan, how are you?
Hi, Lisa. Good. Thanks for having me.
I just have to read the headline on your piece. It says, the vote by phone tech trend is scaring the life out of security experts. Kind of says it all, right?
Yeah, I would say so. There's a lot of concern that this is gaining traction.
Well, there's been a lot of people concerned about threats to our elections, right? And people have been looking toward Russia, and it seems like we maybe should have a side eye towards Silicon Valley. Tell us what this trend is, who's behind it, and what the threats are.
Well, what's happening is you have some people in Silicon Valley who believe that they can safely do voting over mobile phones. And they've convinced some election officials, the Secretary of State in West Virginia to start, and then in the city of Denver, they've also done a pilot project that this can work. And what their pitch is that using some new technology and using what's called the blockchain, which is the way Bitcoin is secured, it involves a whole bunch of computers securing whatever it is you're trying to secure instead of just one. And so the theory is that you have to break into thousands of computer security systems to be able to penetrate something. And they're saying this is a perfect way to secure the vote. But what you also have is all of these cybersecurity experts and voting experts who've been looking at this for a while, because the whole pitch behind mobile voting is that if you could do it, you could really boost participation in elections because it would be so much easier to vote. So there's been interest in this for a long time, and a lot of cybersecurity experts have been looking at it for a long time. And every time they do, they say it's just not secure. And they say it's not secure now, and it's no more secure now than it was when they looked at it last year and the year before, and they're concerned that Silicon Valley is persuading some of these election officials that it is.
Yeah, one of the Microsoft cryptographers you talked to called it magic beans. It's not real. But there are people out there selling it as if it is. Would you tell us who Bradley Tusk is and what he is promoting?
Sure. Bradley Tusk is a former Uber executive. When all these communities were saying we don't want Uber and the taxi lobby was keeping Uber out, Tusk was the guy who understood that the public, once they got to taste this technology, they would really like it. And so they would break the rules, go in and ask permission later. And he harnessed a lot of Uber users in a lot of cities to protest when cities tried to stop the ride sharing service from coming in. And he was quite successful at it. So much so that he played a substantial role in helping the company expand so rapidly. And when it went public, even though it didn't do as well as it wanted to, he had a big stake in it, and he has a lot of money from that.
It seems like he's using the same approach and the same PR with this mobile voting. Like, he wants to stir up the public and get us to clamor for this, even though it's not safe and officials should know better.
Well, he's being transparent about using those strategies. I mean, I saw him here at a conference of political technology people in Washington, and he was talking about we're going to use the Uber model because this is something that people are going to want, and we're going to break our way into these markets. And once people get a taste for this, they are going to insist that it become more widely available. His plan is to have this in use like nationwide by 2028. He talks about it, the 2028 presidential election. He talks about it in terms of his daughter, who's 12 years old now. He wants her to be able to vote by phone by the time she's old enough to vote, when she's 18, and her first presidential election would be in 2028. So, that's how he looks at it. And he's putting his personal fortune behind this. He's spending, he told me, between $20 and $50 million to fund these pilot programs through his charity. He says he has enough money to fund, 25 of these pilot projects.
And he's saying he's not investing in any of these companies that are developing this technology. I mean, he's promising, and you believe him, you take him at his word, that he's not trying to make bank on this, but that he actually really does believe he could help save democracy, right?
This is a personal crusade for him. And you see a lot of this with sort of Silicon Valley people who get involved in politics. And he's a special case because this is someone who came from politics. Before he went to Uber, he was an operative for politicians. I mean, he was Chuck Schumer's communications director. He ran Michael Bloomberg's campaign. And he ultimately was a deputy governor for Rod Blagojevich, who's now serving 14 years in federal prison, as you know, for corruption. He became dismayed with politics. And he feels that a lot of the reasons that tech companies struggle to get approval from regulators is because the political system is so corrupt.
They've had a couple of pilot programs that you mentioned, but really it's a sort of an inconsequential number of votes, less than a couple of hundred service people, overseas in one election. But in the next coming election cycle in 2020, do you think that we will see this being piloted in more cities?
Tusk is confident that it may even be used statewide in one or two states in their primaries for presidential elections in 2020. I mean, we'll see if that happens, but yes, I do think it's going to expand beyond West Virginia and Denver. I was talking to the CEO of the software company that that Tusk has been using, and he told me that they've been talking to multiple jurisdictions. They've been in conversations that extend beyond just sort of hello, get to know you, what is this, actually talking about how it could be implemented in various places.
I do hope you'll keep us abreast of any developments in the story and come back and talk more.
Thank you, Lisa.